It's time for Action News for Kids.
Today, we'll take you into the Twilight Zone for a look at Binghamton's most famous native. I'm Monica Van Wert.
And I'm Kurt Milligan. Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and we'll visit a turkey farm that's getting ready for the big day. These stories and many more are coming right up.
It's a long way from Binghamton to Hollywood, but several years ago, a local man went on to earn fame and fortune as one of the most successful television writers of all time. Maybe you've heard of him. His name is Rod Serling, and perhaps his most famous creation is the TV series The Twilight Zone. Rod Serling never forgot his memories of Binghamton, his hometown. And this year, the town of Binghamton is going to remember Rod Serling in a special way.
Everybody has to have a hometown. Binghamton's mine. When I dig back through my memory cells, I get one particular distinctive feeling, and that's one of warmth, comfort, and well-being. For whatever else I may have had, or lost, or will find, I still got a hometown. This, nobody's going to take away from me. Those were the words of the most famous Binghamton native. His name, Rod Serling. We can remember him as an early pioneer of dramatic television. He received many awards for creative writing during his lifetime. Among his remembered achievements was The Twilight Zone.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Rod Serling was born in Syracuse on Christmas Day in 1924. Soon after, his family moved to Binghamton, where they lived for several years on the city's west side. He was involved in many activities as a young boy, including the Boy Scouts. During his school years, the young Rod Serling was interested in student government at West Junior, and he represented his high school class as president. Serling's drama teacher, Helen Foley, remembers her star pupil.
He was in everything. He was especially a good speaker, which appealed to me. He was in many plays and many assembly programs. When he got to Central, he was in football and basketball. He was editor of the paper in junior high school and in senior high school. He probably did a lot of writing in high school. I'm sure he did. And he was just an all-round guy.
Coming from a small city didn't stop this Binghamton native from becoming famous. After graduating from Binghamton High School in 1942, he joined the Army. Following the war, he attended Antioch College in Ohio. Through a college program, Rod returned briefly to Binghamton to work at WINR Radio. After his marriage to Carolyn Kramer, Serling continued in radio and then moved on to writing for television. His big break came when he was 29 with a show called Patterns. This program won an Emmy, which is an important television award. The following year, he put together the first 90-minute show ever written for TV, called Requiem for a Heavyweight. This show also won an Emmy, making it Serling's second of 6 he would receive in his career. To let his imagination run wild. Since the series took a science fiction approach, he could discuss a number of topics, including politics, human and inhuman relationships. Many of today's popular actors begin their careers in some of the episodes. Besides several familiar faces, many of the shows are remembered for their surprise endings. The Twilight Zone also gave Serling a chance to act, He narrated the episodes and wrote 80% of the scripts. Binghamton was remembered in a few storylines.
The most wonderful of his episodes, and most of them were wonderful, Walking Distance. He remembered Recreation Park with tremendous nostalgia. It was one of the best of his series. He named many things in his TV shows. He used Resnick's on a truck in his first TV, very first one, with Earl Holliman. And he used Whipple's Lumber Yard. He used Cortland's bus station. He used so many things around Binghamton in the series, and he used many names. He used Panditch, Bert Panditch, many of his friends he used in his writings because he loved Binghamton.
Since Binghamton left such a strong mark on Serling's memory, it is only fitting that he should be remembered by members of the community. He was remembered on June 11, 1983, when the Twilight Zone movie premiered in Binghamton. The movie was a tribute to Serling put together by 4 directors. Currently, several members of the community are putting on a display about Serling and his life's work. Bob Rosenbaum helped coordinate much of the material.
This is a pretty large exhibit, and it's got photographs in it, and historical documents, things like scripts and letters, and all kinds of things that Rod Serling wrote during his career. It also has things from his childhood that we had to go around here and collect from different places, like the Central High School and from friends, and really all over the library.
Members of the Rod Serling Memorial Committee feel it's important to keep Serling's memory alive in the community.
I guess a lot of the things that he got here, living here, growing up, are things that he kind of took with him as he went out into the world and began work. And sometimes a town forgets the kind of place that it is. And by looking at how this person grew up and what he was able to accomplish in his life, we might get a better idea what we can each accomplish coming from Binghamton.
Rod Serling is also remembered outside his hometown. Several years after his death, he was inducted into television's Hall of Fame. And this past fall, the Twilight Zone was brought back to the airwaves. I'm Bethany Geiges for Action News for Kids.
If you're interested in learning more about the life of Rod Serling, you can visit a special exhibit. It will be on display at the Broome County Center for the Performing Arts on Washington Street in Binghamton on November 22nd and 23rd. The exhibit will be open from 9 to 9 and on November 24th from noon to 9.
Coming up, we'll visit a turkey farm that's pretty busy at this time of year and look at the art of carving wooden decoys that have been helping hunters for hundreds of years.
And now, back to Action News for Kids.
This time of year means hunting season to many people. Although hunting is mostly a sport now, it was once necessary as a way of providing food. Early duck hunters often used fake ducks, or decoys, which floated on a pond and attracted other ducks to land there. And today, for many people, carving these wooden birds has become a hobby and an art.
Well, decoy making started originally in this country. The American Indians started using decoys to lure ducks close enough so they could hunt them. And when the white settlers came over and saw how well it worked, they began making decoys.
Could you mistake this duck for a real one? Well, for hundreds of years, decoys like this one have been fooling other ducks, and making them has become quite an art.
Local artist Kent Harris gets his inspiration from photographs of wild birds.
If you were to make this bird, how would you start?
Okay, I would start by making a sketch on a piece of paper, and then I would take the sketch and I would transfer it to a piece of wood. This would be the sketch, And I would transfer it to the wood like this with a pencil. Okay, and once the sketch is on the wood, I would take it to the bandsaw and cut it out.
After the head and body pieces have been cut out, the square edges are smoothed out a little by hand with a very sharp tool. A power sander finishes the job. You can see that the wood is beginning to look smooth and sleek. And once all the pieces have been glued together, the shape of a bird is definitely there. More sanding and hand carving that brings out small details follows. When all the carving and sanding is completed, the bird can be painted in the patterns and colors of its real-life model. How did your shop get started?
Well, I started about 5 years ago as a hobby, and then it became a full-time career for me. And it keeps me very busy. I work 12 to 14 hours a day right now, just doing birds.
Why are birds your favorite subjects?
Well, because I like the outdoors, and this is where the birds are found. I spend a lot of time outdoors watching birds, and they just happen to be a favorite subject of mine.
Decoy making today is considered a folk art. That means that although decoys were once made for a purpose, to help hunters, today they're made mostly for decoration and to keep a part of our heritage alive. I'm Sean Montgomery for Action News for Kids.
200 years ago, earlier settlers may have used decoys as they hunted wild turkeys for the first Thanksgiving feast. Well, getting a turkey is just a little bit easier these days. We know just where there's hundreds of them.
Your mom probably gets up pretty early on Thanksgiving morning to get your turkey in the oven on time. A turkey dinner can be a lot of work, but after all, it's only once a year, right? Well, here at Hunt's Turkey Farm, Gene Hunt starts getting ready for Thanksgiving in the middle of the summer. There are 1,200 turkeys in this pen, and they were all hatched on July 25th. They were just 1 day old when they arrived here and were kept at a temperature of 95 degrees. Every week the temperature was lowered 5 degrees until the baby turkeys got their feathers and could keep themselves warm. After about 6 weeks, they were moved to these outdoor pens. For Gene Hunt, this is the busiest time of the year. Do you miss them when they're gone?
No.
When the turkeys leave their pen for the last time, they'll eventually end up in nice neat stacks in this cooler. And from here on, it's a nice warm oven. I'm Bethany Geigus reporting for Action News for Kids.
Raising turkeys on farms is a good way to keep up with the extra demand at Thanksgiving time. You might be surprised to learn that in Japan, oyster farms are set up in the ocean and produce most of the world's supply of pearls. Here's a look at some of the work that goes on into producing these precious jewels.
Cultured pearls are the most popular jewels in America today. So popular that the pearl oysters may not be able to meet demand. Cultured pearls, like natural pearls, are grown by oysters. But cultured pearls are grown by oysters cultivated on underwater farms like these in bays in Japan. Cultivation starts with a pearl oyster spawning. Newly born oysters swim freely, then attach themselves to firm objects on the ocean bottom. They are bred and collected by Japanese oyster farmers who let them grow in the sea, secure in baskets, for 2 to 3 years. When the oysters are big enough, they are brought ashore. Then highly skilled technicians open the live oysters carefully and implant a round piece of polished shell in the flesh of each. It will be the nucleus of the pearl. A piece of mantle tissue taken from another oyster accompanies the shell implant. Like a skin graft, it becomes a part of the mother oyster. Secretions from this tissue envelop the shell nucleus and harden into a crystalline substance called nacre. The oyster must deposit thousands of layers of nacre around the nucleus to form a precious pearl. After the surgical operation, the oysters are returned to the sea. There they continue to feed and grow, depositing layer after layer of nacre around the implanted nucleus. Japanese pearl farmers give their valuable pearl oysters plenty of tender, loving care. When the weather gets too cold, the floating oyster beds are moved to warmer waters. 2 to 3 times a year, the oysters are taken from their homes for a trip through a mechanized cleaning machine, inspired no doubt by American car washes. It removes harmful parasites, barnacles, and other undersea growth. But even with all this human care, nature makes its own odds for survival. Predators, a sharp change in seawater temperature, the dreaded red tide, or a raging typhoon can wipe out entire oyster beds. Only about 40% of the nucleated oysters survive to yield a pearl. And of this relatively small number, only 8% produce fine gem-quality pearls. As pearls are a product of nature, no two are exactly alike. Finding those close enough in luster, color, size, and shape to blend together into a necklace requires a high degree of skill, talent, and training. Then the pearls are drilled, strung, and sent to market. These gem dealers at a Tokyo pearl auction have orders from customers around the world. While demand for cultured pearls has skyrocketed in the past 5 years, the number of oysters that can grow pearls and the growing areas can't keep pace. As a result, pearl prices are likely to go way up. And these lovely jewels from the sea may never again be as affordable as they are today.
Don't go away. When we come back, we'll take a look at the adventures of a real-life girl in Wonderland.
And now, back to Action News for Kids.
The story of Alice in Wonderland has been presented on the stage and screen many times. Surprisingly enough, the role of Alice has always been played by an adult actress, until now. In December, a new production of this classic will feature a 9-year-old Natalie Gregory as Alice.
Alice, can you hear us, Alice?
Imagine you're 9 years old, and one day a movie producer calls and wants you to star in Alice in Wonderland.
Here in Wonderland.
Well, I had butterflies. Lots of butterflies, and I had a couple tears in my eyes. I was really excited.
A dream came true for Natalie Gregory.
Queen Alice!
One day she's a regular little girl from Orange County, California. The next, she's Alice in the 4-hour CBS miniseries based on Lewis Carroll's classic story.
All right, everybody, a lot of noise now, a lot of hubba hubba.
I like to pretend I'm in a dream, and I like having all the pretty sets and having costumes around me that are animal-like.
Call the next witness. Call the next witness.
I always smile no matter if they look ugly or they look bad, because it's funny talking to somebody who's in a costume. Just like at Disneyland, it's funny because you think they're real, and they aren't.
Would you like some wine?
I don't think I should drink wine. I'm too young.
Good.
This is the first time Alice has been filmed with a child as its star instead of an adult actress. Natalie got the part after more than 600 little girls had been considered by producer Irwin Allen.
You know, your hair wants cutting.
You should learn not to make personal remarks.
Fresh cup, move down.
Alice appears in 61 days out of the 61 days of shooting. This has always been thought of as too big a job for a child. But the little girl we found is, I call it 10 feet tall and totally unflappable.
Natalie is slightly too good to be true. Natalie is probably the most perfect 9-year-old child I have ever met.
Just great. We all love her, really. Sweet. It's just too bad she's 37 years old, you know. You know, it's a Hungarian midget. But, hey, show business.
Our presents come for you, dear.
4 hours a day, Natalie was Alice. The rest of the time, she was her normal self, with school, activities, and friends.
My friends react. They think it's neat.
Cut. You okay? All right, print it.
I'm glad they understand because I wouldn't want them to be hurt. And I like to keep my friends while I'm doing this.
Throughout filming, Cliff and Linda Gregory were close by to give their daughter help and support.
She doesn't try to be an actress. She simply tries to display what she's feeling with a given situation.
She's a real little girl, and they were looking for an actress that had the qualities of a real little girl, not too precocious, but just genuine.
And she's natural with it. What you're seeing is what Natalie would actually do if that was really happening to Natalie.
Oh, Alice, don't forget us, Alice.
I think about wanting to go home, and I think about being in a strange land that I've never been before, and I think about missing my parents and wanting to go home and be in my own bed and talk to people I know, and I know their names, and I know their personalities, and I know if they're good or bad.
Alice will love you.
Alice in Wonderland will be shown in 2 parts on December 9th and 10th at 8 o'clock, right here on Channel 12.
Our last story today involves something that we all worry about sometimes, our grades. Calvin Coolidge School in Binghamton has recently changed the system of grades that appear on report cards, and many other local schools will soon be doing the same. Here's a look at that new grading system and some of the kids' reactions to it.
This is Mrs. Truwillo's 3rd grade class at Calvin Coolidge School. These kids and all Binghamton Elementary School children are getting new report cards with a new grading system. The old grading system used an H, S, or L for high, satisfactory, or low for grades 1 through 3. The new grading system will use A, B, C, D, or F for all grades 1 through 6.
It used to be very vague. Parents didn't know what an H really stood for. How high is high? Is it an A, a B? What's satisfactory and what do you consider to be low? The main reason they did want to do it is so that there would be consistency with all the grades.
This is what the new report cards look like. Truwillo says they're much more specific. For example,
the mathematics part of the report card, if a child is having trouble with a specific skill, you can pinpoint exactly what skill it is out of the 17 here that they're going to be marked on.
if a child has trouble with, say, addition, the report card will show it, and the child can work on improving.
I like it better now.
Do you plan to get a lot of A's with the new one?
Yes,
Do you like the old grading system better or the new one?
the new one.
Why?
Because it's easier to tell what you get. Because in the old one, it's kind of hard to tell.
About half the students have already received the new report cards. The other half will get them next week. Greg Cantlin, Action News, Binghamton.
We're almost out of time for today, but we want to take the time to remind you to keep us posted about what your school is doing. If you send us a story idea that we use on the show, we'll send you an Action News for Kids t-shirt, like the ones we're wearing.
Send your letters to Action News for Kids, WBNG-TV, Box 1200, Binghamton, New York, 13902.
We're not going to be on the air next week, but until we see you again, have a nice Thanksgiving and don't eat too much.